live as well. As it's your boy M.K.S here, back in another video. Hope everyone's well. And as I said before, this is about Uganda's belated Independence Day. So yeah, welcome to part 3, the third and penultimate part of my wishes for Uganda on their Independence Day, albeit 10 days late. But I was trying to avoid distractions and that kind of thing, but I was a bit distracted, so I was having to get my bearings back and focus on one thing at a time. Even for a while, I forgot which part of the list I was at. But anyway, this is the third and penultimate part of my list. Big word for me, but penultimate, that is not a list. But on a serious note, I was going to check something on YouTube before I made this video, but I completely forgot what it was. But I'm running again. Anyway, as I say, this is the third and penultimate part of my plans to support Uganda for their Independence Day. As much as I would love to support all African nations as well as Asian nations, but as it's Black History Month, I'm focusing more on Africa. So yeah, these are pointers number 21 to 30. Brain not working out to try and remember where I was in the list. Not sure I should mention this, but I was saying I hope I haven't bored, angered, or offended anyone, especially the latter, because I noticed I lost about 2 or 3 subs on my 2 or 3 subscribers, obviously, on my YouTube. So if you'd be so kind, please get some people to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can help me tell others. If you'd be so kind, obviously it's your choice, but I really appreciate it, and I appreciate any comments that you have, hopefully positive ones, either on Facebook or YouTube. But hopefully in a couple of days, all being well, touch wood, if nothing goes wrong, I should be chatting with my friend Alicia, if I pronounce her name right, from America about dyslexia. So hopefully I'll have a pre-plan tomorrow and see if what we can discuss and all that kind of thing, maybe plan it out. Although I think it should just be a informal chat. Anyway, these are pointers number 21 to 30 as per usual for part 3. So I hope you enjoy them. And here goes. So number 21, I'd love to find out about the history of Uganda. I'd love to find out the history myself, and I'd love for other people to find out about the history. And on that note, if you know any historical facts about Uganda, please post them up in the comments below. It'd be interesting. Normally for Dyslexia Awareness and Black History Month, which it is now, I would love to chat about things like First Sunday, which is today, or tonight now, but I would normally love to talk about things like dyslexic and triple black success stories and things like, in this case, maybe Ugandan success stories. But moving on, number 22, I'd love to see what Uganda can achieve in the future. Number 23, I would love to encourage investment into African nations such as Uganda. I know I said, I mean, the names are very similar to me. I'm sure most people would agree, perhaps. I don't know if there's a reason for that, but the names I think are quite similar. Rwanda and Uganda, I often get them mixed up because they're quite similar. Even in these videos, I got them a bit mixed up when I talk about Uganda. I know they're a little bit different, but they are quite similar. Or is it just me? I think they are similar. But yeah, I know I said that I would love to support Rwanda a little bit more than Uganda, at least because of Uganda, a little bit of a negative side in Uganda's history when they had the dictator Idi Amin, and he was like cannibalizing people and having people's body parts in his fridge and things like that, and also how they kicked the Asians out and that kind of thing. And actually, apparently, my mum was from Kenya originally, or ancestry is kind of from India, but the part that's now in Pakistan. But as it happens, they feared what was happening in Uganda could come to Kenya, or apparently even wanted to invade other African nations, or at least Kenya, and possibly 1 or 2 others. But yeah, it was a maniac, to be honest with you. But I hope relations can improve between Uganda and Asians in the future. Maybe they could even be Blasians in the future, black and Asian. But yeah, I mean, he was completely bonkers, I guess. Maybe he just found that if he took from the Asians, they were a bit quiet and a bit passive, so he thought he could take the wealth or whatever easily or something. I don't know the reason, but I think the official reason they gave was because they didn't integrate, supposedly, or whatever. And the history, I think, is that I heard an Asian lady say this a while back, which was like, um, she said they thought it was a joke when they said you have 3 weeks to leave. But and my mum said, I think that at one point, she said a few options I might be mentioning, but she said that they feared that that attitude, I think, was going to come into Kenya, but also, and maybe it kind of it can be sometimes, where there's an anti-Asian attitude, and sometimes, unfortunately, among some people in Kenya as well, in parts of Africa. But another thing is that obviously, if Idi Amin took over, he would have probably done similar things, or even like to Kenyans and other Africans as well as Asians. But I hope Kenya and other African nations will learn like what happened to Uganda, like how their economy went right downhill after they kicking the Asians out. Many Asians can be good entrepreneurs, professional people, like doctors or whatnot, and things like that. But I guess given like what I think it would be good if that a negative thing. I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but I think that would be good if that united Asians a bit more, Black and Asian people a bit more, and help them to work together and put their differences aside to work together. I think minorities should work together. One thing I say often is like, I don't think we should join militaries, but we should support Asian and African nations. But normally for point number 23, I'd say like I would love to encourage investment. I'd say I'd love to encourage companies like Microsoft, Apple, IBM, and other companies to invest in countries like Uganda and other African nations. And I'd say even though I would support it a bit more than Uganda and maybe a few other African nations a bit more than Uganda, I would still love to support Uganda as they were colonized and things like that. I'd love to encourage that investment. So I'd love to encourage that all across all 54 nations across Africa. And I think if they work together with each other and maybe even Asian nations, hopefully they can do a lot better, a lot more better. Hopefully they can achieve a lot more, basically, of course. Number 24, I hope the nation will work together, unite together and support each other. And again, I'd love to see Africa being as united as possible with each other. Obviously, seeing what they can build together rather than destroy. Again, learning from history and that kind of thing. Number 25, I'd love it. As far as I'm aware, Uganda is a republic, and I'm quite in favour of republics. Partly because, I mean, I suppose there is an argument that someone was saying, like, they had a debate on republics, monarchies versus republics, but someone was saying that, do you think republics would be any cheaper? Like they said, do you think that Obama at the time was president, and I think they said, do you think his security would be any cheaper than you could tell how long ago it was, but I think that was towards the end of his presidency, but it was still I'm going back about 10 years or more perhaps, but I do have a strange memory. But I remember this lady, like it was yesterday, saying, do you think republics would be any cheaper, like their security and all that kind of thing? But I think government should offer the best value of pay for their tax for the taxpayer. And I think maybe talking about dyslexia, I think dyslexics might find creative ways to do that. Yeah, I think they should reduce costs for the taxpayer and have the lowest amount of taxes possible, but use taxes more effectively. I think there should be. I know here in Britain there's a Taxpayers Alliance, but I think there could be organisations like that there could be more which are independent, which say this is the best value for the taxpayer, where you don't waste money, but you still help those at the lowest ends of society. I'd love to promote libertarianism if I wanted in nations like Uganda and across Africa, as I talked about before. But yeah, I'd love to see what they can do working with other republics. I think most of Africa are republics. So that's another reason for me to support them, I guess. But yeah, I think they should look at as I say, the best value of pay for the taxpayer. One of the reasons why for republics compared to monarchies, I'm talking about dyslexia, it's a bit of a dilemma when some dyslexics are royalists or royals even, especially because normally I love to support dyslexics, but my dilemma is at the same time I'm not too keen on monarchies. That's a bit of a dilemma for me. First world problem, but it's still a bit of a dilemma. Yeah, the reason why I support republics normally is, and I suppose this is a bit counterproductive, if there's a lot of corruption and things like that, and if one family has so much power or whatever, like it happened in nations like Tunisia and other parts of Africa, probably Uganda and other places as well, Kenya maybe even, where one or two families, can be dynasties or whatever, can get good favourable contracts or things like that. But the reason why I would say is because the reason why I'm not a big fan of monarchies, at least in part, as well as like being an anti-imperialist and how they invaded other nations in many cases. But even if they didn't, that's another reason not to support them. But the fact that one family gets so much money and like they get taxpayers' money, they get money that they haven't earned, and where most of us, if we're on benefits like myself, we get slagged off for being on benefits. But they have these palaces and things like that. It goes towards one family where you've got people who are homeless and that kind of thing. Now, some people might say, well, I thought you were a capitalist, which I am. And they might say, I thought you are libertarian and capitalist and all that kind of thing. And you don't support higher taxes. Like I support privatization, the deregulation of industries and lower tax and things like that. But one family getting all this money in tax, I think is unfair. And like living in a palace, imagine if every person in a council estate could do that or whatever, for instance. But yeah, the fact this family has so much power, and again, I suppose you could say that could be the same in republics, could be even worse sometimes. But just the fact that taxpayers are forced to pay for it and that kind of thing, I'm not a big fan of it. So sorry to any royalists out there, but I am a big fan of republicanism. But as I say, it's a dilemma when some royals, like the Swedish royal family, I think most of them or all of them are dyslexic or something, apparently. I don't know. They say Princess Beatrice and possibly even King Charles. It takes a while sometimes to get used to calling King Charles. I grew up knowing him as Prince Charles. And some say even Prince Harry. I'm not sure about William, but I mean, it is genetic. So if one has dyslexia, it's possible the others do. Maybe Princess Beatrice is just saying that so that dyslexic support. But on a serious note, yes, they say some royals are dyslexic, and of course some royalists as well. I'm sure plenty are as well. But me personally, I'm not a big fan of royalism, that kind of thing. But anyway, monarchism or whatever. But moving on, number 26, as an incentive to support them. I mean, an incentive not to support them is the fact they keep the Asians out and they had a dictator and that kind of thing. I suppose there are a couple of reasons not to support them. They had a brutal dictator and they keep the Asians out. And I suppose the fact that people voted for that dictator, I suppose, although at the time they voted for him and then he became a dictator, I guess. So there are a couple of reasons not to support Uganda, I think at least I know of. But I would still love to support them because they were colonised by Britain. I'd love to see them get their money back. In fact, I would love for every nation that was colonised to get. I'd love for God to make a positive miracle and show his or her goodness. Which reminded me of something I forgot to say in part 2. Damn it. I forgot to say that like 3 or 4 times. What was I going to say? Well, anyway, I'll probably say that in the next point. But I'd love for God to prove a positive miracle and show his or her existence in a positive way. And part of that would include like every nation that's invaded another and took their resources, stole from them and all that kind of thing, which to me is colonialism, is stealing in my opinion. And it should be a crime in my opinion. But it is a crime to me, I guess, in a way, although they legalise it. It's a legalised form of crime like militarism and royalism and things like that. But again, in my opinion. But obviously, as I say, these videos are my own personal opinion, I often say that. But I'd love for every nation to get back what money was stolen from them. So like Britain apparently looted, some say it's between about 3 to even 45 trillion. That's trillion with a T. So I'd love for them to get that money back somehow. Don't know how. But then I guess I was going to say the argument the other way, like Britain. A lot of people in Britain could say, well, Britain is one of the most colonised countries in the world. Should they get money back from Romans, Germans, French people? And I dream that God would find some sort of way, a miraculous way, to get them, whichever nation. I think it's going to be fair. It's going to be to any nation that was colonised, preferably without causing any poverty, but that's easier said than done. But like if a nation, I think if Britain had to pay reparations to Uganda, Rwanda, South Africa and whatever other nations similar with the Dutch, I think if they said, oh, we can't afford it because otherwise it's going to affect our taxpayers and make it bad for our poor people and like our medical industry, our healthcare industry, medical/healthcare industry, education, teaching, training, all that kind of thing would be affected and that kind of thing, then I think the UN or whoever could say tough. But on a serious note, I think they could say, okay, fair enough. But if it's for social programs like healthcare and education, but they're spending millions or even billions on weapons to invade other nations like Iraq and not learning from history. I think the international community, in my opinion, should come along and say, actually, no, you can afford to pay. You just have to cut back on your military, cut back on your weapons trade and things like that, invading other nations. But yeah, I guess to be fair, any nation that is invaded, whoever they may be, but that's my personal opinion. Obviously, there's times in history where there's invasions I haven't even heard of. But if God sees and knows everything, then I think he or she should do that justice. Right? Any nation that invaded another and took their resources and took their rights away, I'd love for God to find a way to make them pay somehow. Or maybe that could be done by international law, but answer call. But yeah, I'd love for God to find some way to do that. But number 27, on that note, talking about God, I want to say, I meant to say in point number 8 yesterday for the Rwanda videos, and I meant to say in point number 8 today for these videos, because I think of although I often say 8 rhymes with hate, but I love to change it to love. So I love to focus on the positives and love more if I can. And I don't want to hate anyone or anything. But yeah, so on that note, I would love to, I'd say, even though he or she, they let me down daily, I still love God with all my might, mind, heart, soul, and strength. So I really wanted to say that point number 8, but I kept forgetting. Don't know why God didn't remind me of that. But going back to Uganda, though, hopefully if they treat people better, they treat the Asians better and unite, the reward, other things like rewards for point of choice, God bless them if they do so, because they can build their tourism, build things like AI, apps, robotics, and all that kind of thing. AI/robotics/apps and that kind of thing. And there was something I was going to say. Oh yeah, as a reward for me supporting them, I dream that they will invest into and donate to, invest into and sponsor and maybe even donate to Italian football teams like Udinese and also Celtic in Scotland. Something I was going to say about football, but I'll probably leave them for part 4. Number 28, I hope they can turn negative situations into positives and learn from history. And I will probably say that thing about football, which is a bad result for Celtic, lost 2-0, and I'm really disappointed. And we're about 5 points behind. So this side note. But in the future, I dream that Uganda and other nations across Africa will, as well as benefiting themselves, I dream that they will do those sorts of things I talked about, with like sponsoring football kits, even making their own football kits for Celtic and giving them those for free or whatever, and even paying for like sponsorship deals, say like visit Rwanda, invest in Rwanda and whatnot. Uganda, sorry, in this case, and Rwanda and all that kind of thing. In this case, with Udinese and Celtic. But yeah, Celtic unfortunately had a bad result. I'm hoping we get loads of investment. Part of me wondered if a consortium could go and buy us. I did want to talk about Celtic, but because I was procrastinating a lot and talking to one of my sisters a lot, I thought I should get on with things, but I was enjoying the chat. So it set me back, and then I was procrastinating and all that kind of thing. But nice life story. But yeah, it was all bad. And then one good bit of news. I did think to myself, I had a sneaky vision we could draw or even lose today, and not capitalise on our rivals, the Rangers, dropping even more points yesterday by drawing. But we're still quite a bit behind Hearts. But the good news is, at least it's not Rangers we're behind. I suppose if we're not going to win, I'd rather it not be Rangers either. If that makes sense. So anyone but the Rangers, I guess. But I'd rather it be us, to be fair. I'd rather us be in the position of Hearts. But hopefully we can beat them next week, or whenever we play them. I can't quite remember. But I'm hoping to check the fixtures out soon, ASAP. Hopefully tomorrow. And again on Friday, just to remind myself because I forget things. But Kevin Muscat said no to managing them. Sorry, no side notes. But moving on, number 29, I look for African nations like Uganda to host like the World Dyslexia Summits, Global Summits for Dyslexia and that kind of thing. So international dyslexia organisations and individuals with dyslexia going to countries like Uganda, going to those sort of nations and talking about what we can do, like dyslexics who are entrepreneurs, sports stars, actors, actresses, and successful in their chosen field, whether that's finance or business, banking, sports, or whatever it might be, and saying what we can achieve in spite of our struggles, and for people in Uganda, across Uganda, to learn that kind of thing, and also mixed race people who are part black and part whatever other background, so part black and Asian, or part black and part European, Afro-European, as some people might call them, or whatever. Or I say it's caramel or whatever. But yeah, to support Uganda. And number 30, normally I say confessional stuff, but I'm not going to say it right now. So I'll leave it at that. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this up for once. Trying to get to, well, I'm still talk about over twice as long as planned on that note. Peace and love, and I'm out.